A second robbery at a Queens church ending in confrontation, and it was all caught on camera. I'm Emily Druby, and that story is coming up.
The crisis in Catholic Venezuela, new protests against Nicolas Maduro as he sends a warning directly to the American people. The race against the clock to prevent another government shutdown, the latest from Washington. Plus, the Pope talks about World Youth Day in Panama days before he takes off again, this time for the United Arab Emirates. A top diplomat from the country is here to look into that historic journey. The news starts right now. A suspected thief returned to the scene of a crime, a Queens church, and was confronted by the pastor. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Everything was caught on camera. The suspect prowling through St. Gerard Majella Church in Hollis, Queens, before the priest spotted him. The pastor recognized the man as the suspect who stole from the church before. Currents News' Emily Druby has the exclusive details.
Father Joseph Jude Gannon shocked when he saw a familiar face on his church's surveillance system.
He's trying to rob us, and then I thought, he's the same guy in the picture from a couple of months ago.
Last Thursday, Father Gannon, the pastor of Shrine Church of St. Gerard Majella, quickly realized the same person who had stolen $4,000 worth of guitars back in October was standing in the church. After the first incident, they upgraded to a more advanced security system that sends alerts right to Father Gannon's phone, and that is how he saw the suspect in the church.
We have upgraded our security system with motion sensors and new cameras and new angles, which he didn't know about.
After identifying him, Father Gannon confronted the suspect, who paused for a few moments before taking off when he heard the police were on their way, riding away on the same bike he used during the last theft.
So then the police came maybe a minute and a half later. I hopped in their car, and then we were driving around the neighborhood with about 6 or 7 squad cars for, give or take, about a half hour looking, and he didn't turn up.
He was unable to take anything this time, but Father Gannon says he did bring tools with him to break into the poor boxes. Both incidents happened in the afternoon. Father Gannon says his church would have helped the suspect if he had just asked.
We're praying that he turns himself in. We're praying that he doesn't hurt anybody. We're praying that whatever he's going through, that he realizes that this is not the way.
Adding he has no plans to close the church during the day. In addition to the church break-ins a few blocks away at New York City Muslim Center, police say a male suspect removed more than $1,900 from the collection box. No arrests have been made in that case, and police have not said if the two are connected. In Hollis, Emily Druby, Currents News.
The NYPD is asking for the public's help in identifying the suspect in the church break-ins. Anyone with information should contact Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS or send a text to crimes, then enter TIP 577. The pressure on Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro is mounting tonight. Massive crowds took to the streets today demanding Maduro step down as president. Opposition leader Juan Guaido declared himself president 1 week ago. Almost immediately, the U.S. backed him and sanctioned Venezuela's oil industry. This morning, President Trump tweeted, Maduro willing to negotiate with opposition in Venezuela following U.S. sanctions and the cutting off of oil revenues. Guaido is being targeted by Venezuelan Supreme Court. Americans should not travel to Venezuela until further notice. The Trump court comment refers to a freeze on Guaido's bank accounts and a travel ban imposed by the judges. For his part, Maduro released a video message on Facebook directed at the American people, warning the Venezuelan crisis could turn into another Vietnam.
Necesitamos un Vietnam en América Latina. Si los Estados Unidos pretenden intervenirnos, tendrán un Vietnam peor que el que se han podido imaginar. No permitamos violencia.
The embattled president also told Russian news agency he's prepared to hold talks with the opposition. Emergency talks are underway on Capitol Hill aimed at making a deal and keeping the government open. Negotiators from both parties and both chambers of Congress are up against a deadline. Karen Kaifa has the latest.
A bipartisan group of negotiators from the House and Senate sitting down for the first time.
And I hope that by reaching a compromise here, we will set a tone of bipartisanship.
Their task, a border security deal. The deadline, February 15th, when a stopgap government funding measure expires. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi leaving them to their work.
I think the conference can reach a good result, left to its own devices without an interference from anybody else.
But President Trump tweeting, if the committee of Republicans and Democrats now meeting on border security is not discussing or contemplating a wall or physical barrier, they are wasting their time. Democrats want a conversation less about a wall, more about things like technology and ports of entry.
Along with my Democratic colleagues, I'm ready to work in good faith to write a Department of Homeland Security bill that funds smart, effective border security.
If and when the committee reaches a compromise, that bill needs to pass the House and the Senate and get President Trump's signature to avert another shutdown. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have been floating proposals to prevent more shutdowns down the line.
After going through this 35-day shutdown, it was so painful. We don't want to do this again. And there are different ways to get at it.
The shutdown that ended last Friday was the longest in U.S. history. In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
Today, tense high-level negotiations between the U.S. and China got underway. The goal is to end the trade war between the world's top two economies. The Chinese team is being led by the country's Vice President Liu Hui. The American side includes several members of the Trump cabinet. A March 2nd deadline is set. If not met, the White House will increase tariffs on Chinese goods. Hillary Clinton is not running again for president. At least that's what the man who headed up her last campaign is saying. Earlier this week, sources claim she was keeping the door open to another run at the White House. John Podesta says he takes her at her word.
She's not running for president. We got a lot of great candidates out there right now, and I think the Democratic primary is going to be a spirited one with a lot of great ideas coming forward, and as I said, you know, I think she would have been a great president, but that's in the past, and she said she's not running.
Clinton made a historic run in 2016, becoming the first woman to receive the Democratic presidential nomination. Pope Francis held his first general audience this morning since returning from Panama. He compared the joyful attitude he felt at World Youth Day with the push to build border walls. Sean Richardson reports.
Despite his intense trip these past days in Panama, Pope Francis was still full of energy. In his first general audience after World Youth Day, he joked around with these children and even took time to try this Métis tea offered to him. After each trip, the Pope usually dedicates his general audience to reflecting on his recent journey, and this one was no exception. He said he was impressed by the parents in Panama who proudly presented their children for him to bless. He has also witnessed this in other countries.
La gente alzava con le braccia I bambini. Così. Quando passava il papamobile, tutti col bambini alzando. E come dicendo, ecco il mio orgoglio, ecco il mio futuro.
Pope Francis said he was also surprised by all the joyful pilgrims from different nationalities and cultures.
Un segno controcorrente rispetto alla triste tendenza odierna ai nazionalismi conflittuali che alzano dei muri e si chiudono alla universalità, all'incontro fra I popoli.
He also underlined the importance in contemplating suffering, especially during the Way of the Cross. The Pope reiterated his message at Panama that young people must be taken seriously. Finally, he remembered St. Oscar Romero, whom he used as an example for imitation to Central American bishops.
In Rome, Sean Richardson, Currents News.
Just back from Panama, the Holy Father not unpacking his bag. Sunday he'll be in the air again, flying to the United Arab Emirates to explore the Pope's mission. The Consul General of the UAE in New York, His Excellency Majid Al Suwaidi, joins us now. I hope I said that correctly. I've been practicing. Thank you so much for joining us. Francis will be the first Pope to visit the Arabian Peninsula. First question for you. Does the papal visit challenge the contention that there is this unbridgeable gap between Islam and Christianity?
Liz, first, thanks you for having me on your show. It's really a pleasure to be here. I think we're all very excited about this historic visit of the Pope to the United Arab Emirates. And it really speaks to the long history that the UAE has had with the Vatican and with the Pope. Not many people know that the first Catholic Church in the UAE was built in 1965. And after the formation of the UAE in 1971, the Holy See for the Southern Arabian Peninsula was moved from Aden to Abu Dhabi. So there's been a long history there.
There has been a very long history. During this visit, he's going to meet with the International Muslim Council of Elders. What should we expect from this meeting?
I think that this is a really important part of the visit, and a lot of people are very excited about this, about the interfaith dialogue that can happen between these leaders. The Pope will also be meeting with the Grand Imam of the Cairo Al-Azhar Mosque, the Imam Ahmed al-Taib, which is a very historic meeting, I think, as well. And they have a long relationship already.
Your Excellency, a hallmark of the Francis papacy has been encouraging Catholics to engage in dialogue with Muslims. The challenge here is he's bringing this message to a country where it is illegal to proselytize in the UAE. How will that message be received in the country?
Again, a lot of people are very excited about the Pope's visit. The UAE, and a lot of people don't know this, is a very tolerant and open society where people are free to worship and practice their religion. We have more than 40 churches in the UAE, 700 Christian ministries, and people of many different faiths. We have 200 different nationalities in the UAE who live in peace and harmony and practice their religion freely.
Speaking about this openness, the Holy Father has developed a very personal relationship with the Grand Imam of the Al-Azhar Mosque in Cairo. How do religious leaders in your country view that union?
I think in the UAE we have a vision of a moderate, modern Islamic state, and the UAE government has done a lot of work to try and promote our shared values, our common historical values, and promoting cross-cultural dialogue. This year in 2019 is the year of tolerance in the UAE, and this visit is really a part of that year of celebrating diversity and celebrating interfaith dialogue.
I can see the enthusiasm in your voice and in your face. Really quickly, on the interreligious front, Your Excellency, what do you hope that the Pope will accomplish with this visit?
This visit, I think, has to be a milestone in the continuation of that dialogue between faiths. The more that we can work together and encourage dialogue and communication between faiths, the more that we can all work together to a more peaceful and prosperous world. So it's really important in that, I think.
I thank you so much. This has been enlightening, and your perspective has been very refreshing. Thank you, Your Excellency. I appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
The thermometer registers 30 degrees below zero on a Minneapolis office building early this morning. The bitter cold will grip our area overnight. For the next few days, more than 200 million Americans will be freezing. The so-called polar vortex is breaking records in many places, with the coldest hitting 40 below zero. At that temperature, frostbite can occur almost immediately. A lot of schools are closed and nearly 3,000 flights have been scrubbed. The polar vortex has also forced the U.S. Postal Service to halt mail delivery operations in the 10 most affected states. The list includes Minnesota, Iowa, the Dakotas, and Nebraska. Emergency officials are urging people to please stay indoors. A legendary public official with a close relationship to the Brooklyn Diocese has passed away. Charles Joe Hines was the longtime Brooklyn District Attorney. He's seen here with Bishop DiMarzio during a campaign to combat gun violence. The prosecutor served as DA from 1990 to 2013. Born in Brooklyn and a graduate of St. John's Law School, he opened one of the domestic violence bureaus in the country. He also served as the city's fire commissioner in the early 1980s. He was 83 years old. There's a lot more news headed your way. A TV actor is threatened with a noose. Tonight, the FBI is probing the possible hate crime. Editor-in-chief of The Tablet, Jorge Dominguez, will tell us about a special editorial in this week's paper addressing the governor and the church. Plus, several students receive a special gift for Catholic Schools Week. Tonight, the FBI is on the case investigating a possible hate crime against a star of the TV show Empire, actor Jussie Smollett. He's telling police in Chicago 2 men attacked him and wrapped a noose around his neck. Sarah Seidner has the latest.
Actor and singer Jussie Smollett is best known for his role in the television series Empire, where he plays Jamal, a black singer who is gay. Smollett is also black and gay, which may have been the motivation for an alleged attack against him in Chicago. Police say they are investigating a possible hate crime against the actor with the help of the FBI. Authorities say the Empire actor reported that the crime happened at about 2 in the morning Tuesday, when two men got his attention by yelling out racial and homophobic slurs. Smollett told police the men then began hitting him in the face and poured an unknown chemical substance on him, adding that at some point during the incident, one of the offenders wrapped a rope around his neck. During a follow-up interview, police say Smollett told them something new, that during the attack, the offenders uttered, "This is MAGA country." Overnight, police announcing they are expanding the search area for surveillance video of the alleged attackers. After combing through hundreds of hours of videos, the only image of Smollett police obtained from security cameras was inside the Subway sandwich shop near the location of the reported crime, and he was standing alone. Empire director Lee Daniels taking to social media to voice his support for Smollett.
You didn't deserve, nor anybody deserves, to have a noose put around your neck, to have bleach thrown on you. We are better than that. America is better than that.
That was Sarah Seidner reporting. Chicago police say they're taking the case very seriously. The refugee crisis in the Mediterranean is getting worse. There are new findings from the UN that show more migrants are dying trying to make the treacherous ocean crossing to Europe. It's estimated that over 2,000 people died at sea in 2018. The report says the higher death rate is partly the result of cuts to search and rescue teams on the Mediterranean. Pope Francis has made the plight of the refugees a top priority of his papacy. And now for a preview of the latest edition of The Tablet. There are two top stories being covered: New York State's new abortion law and the Child Victims Act. Bishop DiMarzio has written a special column about the developments, and we're joined now by the Tablet's editor-in-chief, Jorge Dominguez. Jorge, welcome.
Hi, Liz. Thank you.
Let's talk about the bishop's column. Because of the new laws, especially the one permitting abortion up until the moment of birth, some are calling for Governor Andrew Cuomo to be excommunicated. But Bishop DiMarzio, he's taking a different path.
Oh, yes. In his column, Bishop DiMarzio explained that many people have asked the church to excommunicate Governor Cuomo because of that law. But Bishop DiMarzio gives two very important reasons not to do that. The first one is we should pray for him, not judge, but pray for him instead of just excommunicating the governor. But in practical terms, the bishop says that probably the excommunicating the governor is going to be counterproductive because he's going to use that for his political purposes too.
So the bishop taking a more pastoral approach there.
Oh yes, he's even proposing that maybe we should include Cuomo in the prayer of the faithful in Mass. Pray for him every day. This is the Christian way to do it.
Oh, a lot to look into that particular discussion. Now let's take a closer look at the Child Victims Act and the governor. He struck a nerve when he seemed to blame the church for blocking the law. Listen to this.
We were foiled by the conservatives in the Senate. I don't even believe it was the moderates in the Senate. I believe it was the conservatives in the Senate who were threatened by the Catholic Church.
Now, Bishop DiMarzio said earlier versions of the legislation weren't fair because the church alone was singled out. What does he write about the act now in his special column?
Well, exactly what he says is that any person that took a look at the law have to realize that we couldn't accept that law because it was just extended the period to sue the Catholic Church schools, but not the public schools. So they were single. I mean, it's a discrimination, clear discrimination there. So the bishop says once the law include all schools, all institutions, we were okay with that.
All right, thank you so much for that, Jorge. This article will appear first in the printed version of the tablet, which is in churches across the diocese right now, or in your mailbox with a subscription. Your support for the tablet is needed to ensure that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. If you subscribe to the tablet, you'll save up to 55%. Go to the website, thetablet.org/home55, or call 877-883-8356. As Catholic Schools Week continues, Brooklyn's auxiliary bishops are visiting classrooms across the diocese. Bishop Witold Moriewski spent time at St. Stanislaus in Queens, where he handed out Pope Francis prayer cards. Some youngsters even received rosaries. The bishop held an assembly with the students where they sang a medley of songs from 10 years of the school's stage productions. Still to come on Currents News, an unexpected discovery in the Arctic. I'll tell you what scientists found that was hidden for over 40,000 years. And braving the deep cold, why an 80-year-old crossing guard still showed up to work despite the frigid temperatures. We'll be right back. Police in South Florida discovered what appears to be a secret tunnel, and it might lead to a nearby bank. It happened when officers in Pembroke Pines were dispatched this morning to the scene where a car hit a large pothole. Responding officers determined it wasn't just a normal hole in the road. It seemed to lead to a tunnel that appears to go in the direction of a Chase Bank branch. The FBI is also investigating. As a brutal winter cold snap ices our area and other parts of America, an 80-year-old school crossing guard in Iowa braved the cold to make sure kids are safe. Ben Oldak has that report.
So nice to see you. Goodbye. Have a nice evening, my dear lady.
Glenn Peterson spends his afternoons at the corner of Valley West Drive and Western Hills Drive. The 80-year-old crossing guard says this week's brutal temperatures won't stop him from doing his job.
I was raised on a farm in southern Iowa, so this kind of weather never really bothered me too much. I just layer up, about 5 on top and 3 on the bottom. I feel no pain because my face is conditioned. How was your day?
He dutifully stands watch along the busy road, even if only one student needed his services Monday afternoon. But the West Des Moines School District may not need his help over the next few days. They're closely watching the forecast to determine if they need to close schools during the week.
We're already in contact with the National Weather Service, monitor that, as well as area school districts to determine what we may decide to do and what the most appropriate timing for that is.
The school district says they're looking for sustained wind chills of -30 as the benchmark for closure, but that's not set in stone.
We absolutely take into account the students who are walking to school or waiting for buses, as well as wanting to make sure that our buses are going to run smoothly and be warm enough to get the kids to each of the schools that they're going.
Something that Glenn Peterson says he wasn't lucky enough to experience.
I had an 1/8 of a mile to walk to a little country school. We never canceled school back in the good old days.
In West Des Moines, Ben Oldak.
Oh, Glenn is my new superhero. A stunning and icy revelation in the Canadian Arctic tonight. Plants from tens of thousands of years ago were found at the edges of melting glaciers. Using radiocarbon dating, researchers discovered that most of the plants had been under ice for at least 40,000 years. Scientists say the Arctic region is enduring its warmest century in more than 100,000 years. A llama born after the campfire in California has a special job. Phoenix Hope is her name, and she's now a therapy llama. She belonged to a couple who had to leave their home behind during the deadly wildfires last year. But when they returned home, they found little Phoenix had joined the pack. They say that caring for her has served as a form of therapy that, oh, they desperately needed. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.